Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a little project for you today. I'm going to be making an ephemera holder out of this book. I have these label pockets that I'm going to be using to store some ephemera. Specifically, I have some digital prints that I need to kind of keep organized. I have my Tim Holtz ephemera sort of done a different way. And this is not a new idea to me. This is just kind of my twist on it. I did not come up with this. Plenty of people have made these ephemera storage holders before, but this is just going to be sort of my take on it. So I'm basically going to alter this Reader's Digest condensed book. This is not necessarily vintage. This one is actually from the 80s, but this was from the collection that belonged to my great aunt, and she was an English teacher, so she had all kinds of books and everything, and so these kind of passed down to me. I have a ton of them, but this one just had a good cover that was still intact, that wasn't going to fall apart. And so you can see me kind of struggling here. I'm removing the text block from this book. I want to use the cover exactly like it is. I love the decoration on it. I just thought it was really pretty. So I'm just going to be removing this text block. And I'm struggling with this a little bit, partially because I don't know why, but I was using like my worst X-Acto knife. I don't know why I didn't reach for a different one, but also, when a book is really, not as aged as other like really vintage books, you'll find where the spine is already pulling away. Those are a little bit easier to pull out, but you can certainly still do it. You just have to be a little bit careful, and then don't do like I do. Work on a nonstick, or not a nonstick, but a surface. I nearly put a hole in my surface here on my Tim Holtz mat. I didn't, fortunately, but just be more careful and put something underneath your surface. But so I'm going to take this text block. I'm going to set that to the side. I will use that for other things, for glue pages, for creating pockets out of. Just, it's got a nice patina to it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that, and I will use that down the road. I was just pointing out that this book on the inside here has my a stamp from my great aunt on it that said that it belonged to her and to her library. And so I just want to keep that as much as possible. So I'm not going to do much to cover the inside of this either. I am using this Tim Holtz paper. This is actually a backdrop, and I cut it down to size so that it's going to fit in this spine and then overlap to cover up, where I cut out the text block. And I don't really know if this is going to work exactly the way that I wanted it to. But I'm not measuring anything. I had cut it, to size. And then what I'm going to do is put some scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive down here in just the recessed part of the spine. This is a super sticky adhesive, so it's going to hold it really well. In theory, I could have used gaffer tape or something that was a little bit more flexible, but I really wanted to use this paper because it matches, and I just thought it was cute. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of starting out going straight into the spine. You can see I had already kind of folded it in there just to kind of prepare it, and I'm using my bone folder, and I'm just going to kind of work into the corners of where the book would actually naturally fold, just to get it, because it's really hard, to try to measure exactly. Maybe I didn't cut one side evenly with the other one or whatever. So doing it this way is just kind of the cheater way, I guess, just to make sure everything is nice and folded where it needs to be. And then I am going to use liquid adhesive for the other section. I feel like this was just a better idea than the score tape or the scrapbook.com, same stuff, different name. Because these PVA glues are designed to be just a little bit more flexible. And so I'm hoping that will help with the opening and closing of the actual spine here. So I'm just going to add a good amount of adhesive. I'm just making sure to burnish it down really well. And then I'll use my bone folder in the creases here just to make sure everything is going to fold nice and neatly. You can see I did that to both sides. And that is basically my cover finished. So I want to add my pages, and I'm going to use a twine binding technique for this because I want my pages to be removable in case something tears, in case I want to add more pages, in case if I want to take them out. Just gives more flexibility for the kind of journal, or for the ephemera holder that I'm making. So I have this paper. These are just black and whites. These are actually some very old what is it, Stampin' Up! Paper. And so I have cut them down to size to fit in my journal, which I ended up cutting them to about 10 by 7, so that when I fold them, they will fit nicely in there. They could have been a little bit bigger, but that was okay. So I am just going through now. I'm going to fold all of the pages, and the ones I have, multiple of the same style. So I'm folding them opposite ways just to give a little bit more interest, and then I will vary them as well. So I'll have like a dark version and then a white version and then a dark version and a white version. And I wanted something that was, not too heavy of cardstock, but also something that was going to hold up to the spine. So I'm just making sure everything is the way that I want it. There are 12 of these pieces of paper, so I am basically going to have 12 signatures. So you can do this. I've done this binding before with some journals that I've made for By the Well, and it's a good way especially if you like to be able to take your page out, work on it, and then stick it back in. It's just a really versatile kind of binding. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with a long tail on the outside. I'm using some, it's almost like jute. Normally I would use the baker's twine, but I didn't have any in the right color. So, and then I'm just going to wrap this around the spine for however many signatures I have. So in this case, I have 12. So I'm going to wrap this around 12 times. So that each signature will have its own thread on the inside. And I won't make you watch me do that. And then just kind of make sure that you have 12. So I flipped it over to the inside, made sure I had all 12. Then I'm going to flip it back over, and I am going to straighten everything. You don't want any of the threads to be crossed here at this point. So I'm just straightening everything, tightening everything up before I tie this down. And then just making sure that, I don't want to have any that are crossed or whatever, like I said. So I'm going to cut this part, and then that just makes it a little bit easier to work with. And so now I have a piece that's coming up from the top and a piece that's coming up from the bottom, and I'm going to cross them. Now you could do this anywhere on the spine. You could do it in the middle. I like doing it about the top third. And then I'm going to take the edge that's on the left side, I'm going to slide it all the way underneath all of those threads over to the right side. And I'm fumbling with this because it was just the kind of day I was having. And then I'm just going to make sure everything is nice and straight here again. And I'm going to tie the first part of a square knot. So just one time through here, I'm just going to hold everything in place. And I'm going to flip to the inside and just make sure one more time that everything is good. And then I'm going to tie the rest of that knot, and then I will just make a little bow. You could leave the strings hanging or do whatever. I just decided to do the bow for now, and that is basically my cover. That's basically my journal. So I'm going to start by adding all of my quote-unquote signatures, just my paper, into the journal. And I have found that working from the back to the front is a little bit easier with these. These are thin enough that it doesn't give you too much of a fit, but you can do this kind of binding with full signatures. If you had like signatures that you had hand sewn or whatever, you could certainly do that. I tend to do this with pages that I want to kind of be able to remove and then add back in. So you can kind of see how everything looks now that I have all 12 papers in there. And then I have these clear they're stickers, and I'm going to be putting my ephemera in here. So I have some of these for the bigger. I'm going to try to get 2 on a page. I'm not quite sure if those are going to work, but I do have some other things. I also am going to maybe sew in some vellum and different things so that I have like smaller pockets and different things to work with for some of the smaller pieces of ephemera. I'm not going to do any of that on camera because that's just a labor intensive process, but I will show you what a couple of these are going to look like, of these bigger pieces of ephemera. These are tags from the Junk Journal Studio, by the way. But I really want to have enough space to kind of keep these organized and be able to see what I have and grab what I want to quickly. And so feel like this journal will help me to be able to do that. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.